guys. Hey. Oh gosh. Okay. No, please. The trash cans were back there from like the game, and I'm telling you, I wanted to throw up. It smelled. So I almost threw up. I'm not joking. Good to see you guys. Small crowd tonight. That's great. Anyways, my name's Amanda, as you guys heard. My role here at CY is I am the youth coordinator, so my role is with worship, production, and creative. So if you've ever served here at CY, you've probably worked with me before. So a little bit about me, if you don't know me. I am 25 years old, and I've been serving at CY for the past 5 years. And it's honestly just been one of the biggest joys of my life to serve here, to serve with Kobe and with Amanda, and to like watch you guys grow up and to watch you guys encounter Jesus every week. It's just been the greatest experience of my life. And so I'm the youngest of 3 siblings. Yeah, 3 siblings. I have an older brother. His name's Jason. They're on the screen. His name's Jason. He's 30. He's in med school, and he's trying to be a doctor. And then I have an older sister named Marissa. She's 28, and she is a 5th grade teacher. Is anyone else here the youngest in the room? Okay. I feel for you guys because it's rough. It's kind of rough. I feel like being the youngest, you get bullied the most out of like all your siblings. So I definitely was bullied as a kid from my siblings. But have you guys ever like been in a fight with your siblings before? Yeah, probably everybody has. I definitely have. It's kind of funny because the rage that you feel when you're fighting with your sibling is like no rage that I've ever experienced. I swear, like the maddest I've ever been has been at my sibling. Like I don't know what it is about siblings; they just drive me insane. So there was this one time when I was 7 maybe years old, and my mom, she for whatever reason she let me like listen to a song and didn't let my sister, me and my sister were fighting over who wanted to listen to a certain song, and she let me listen to my song, and my sister was like really, really angry about it, and so there's this like home video of us where my sister's just like bawling, and I'm in the background just like dancing to my song, and so I brought it here, so if you guys want to watch it. That's me right there. Yeah, so that's me. Thank you. I'm going to be dancing like that at Silent Disco probably next week, so if you guys want to be there, you can see that. But yeah, isn't that just like the epitome of like what a sibling relationship is like? We've been in a series called The Story of Joseph, and we've been talking about Joseph and his siblings. And if you've missed the last few weeks, or if you forgot, I want to give you guys a little recap of what we've talked about. So Joseph was one of 12 brothers. Does anyone have like a lot of siblings here? Anyone have 12 siblings? No, okay, same. And then Joseph was also the favorite child. Does anyone here the favorite child? Okay, I am not the favorite child. My brother is the favorite child. So he was the favorite, and Joseph's brothers hated him for that. And so they literally planned to kill Joseph because of it. Like they were so upset with him that they wanted to kill him. Can you guys imagine? Like imagine your sibling right now in your head, and imagine that they wanted to like kill you. Like doesn't it's just insane. It's so sad. So they planned to kill him. They mocked him. They threw him in like a pit, and then instead they decided that they wanted to sell him instead as a slave. And so do you guys think that sounds like the ultimate like betrayal? Like that sounds like the worst thing that you can do to someone. These people who are supposed to love you and who are supposed to protect you are the ones hurting you. And so I want to share a story with you guys about a time that I felt deeply hurt by somebody. A few years ago, I graduated from college in 2021. I remember being so excited to just celebrate with my family and celebrate with the people I loved. And I remember it was during COVID, so I got 4 tickets, only 4 tickets. And I knew exactly who I wanted to come. It was like my mom, my dad, my brother, and my sister. Like those are the 4 people I was so excited to have at my graduation. And so I remember like texting my brother. I was like, "Hey Jason, I just want to know if you're gonna come to my graduation." And he texted me back and he was like, "Hey, I'm so sorry. Like I I can't, I have to study for a big test, because he was trying to get into med school. So like, he had to study. I was like, man, okay, that's a bummer. And then I texted my sister. I was like, hey, Marissa, like, are you able to come to my graduation? And same thing. She was like, hey, I'm so sorry. I can't come to your graduation. I have work. Like, she just became a teacher. So like, it was her first year teaching, so she couldn't come. And I just remember being just like so sad that they weren't gonna be there. I remember trying to convince them like to come, because I wanted them there so bad, and it was still a no. And I just remember like the built-up frustration in me and the built-up hurt in me, especially after like I know that I went to their high school and their college graduations, and then I knew that I wouldn't have missed that for the world. So just like to know that like they didn't feel like it was important enough like to come really hurt me. And I remember, this is so sad, I remember getting ready for graduation and like curling my hair in the bathroom and just like crying, because I was just so sad. Like I wanted them there so bad. So have you guys ever felt a pain like that before? Maybe like it's similar to Joseph. Maybe it's more similar to me. Have you guys ever been hurt by somebody that you love? Maybe a best friend lied about you. Maybe your mom like lashed out at you for something that you didn't do. Maybe your brother called you a name that just cut a little too deep. Maybe your dad didn't show up to something, or maybe it's something even deeper and harder than that. But I think we've all felt a pain like this before. But the question is, like, what are we gonna do with that hurt? How are we gonna respond to that kind of hurt? Are we gonna act out in retaliation? Are we gonna seek revenge? Are we gonna get an eye for an eye? Like, what are we supposed to do? So the big question of the night, it's gonna be on the screen. Our big question of the night is this: what are we supposed to do when someone has hurt us so bad that it feels impossible to forgive them? What are we supposed to do when someone has hurt us so bad that it feels impossible to forgive them? So I think Joseph gives us like the perfect model of how to handle a situation like this. So as we continue back into the story of Joseph, if you remember what we learned last week, so Joseph eventually became the ruler of Egypt. And so I'll set the scene here. Joseph is in Egypt. He's ruling, and there's a famine. And so his brothers are coming to Egypt because they're in need of food because there's a famine. And they don't realize that Joseph is the ruler. I mean, obviously, they think he's dead. And so his brothers go to Egypt to get help. And then we'll start in Genesis verse 42, or chapter 42, verse 5 through 8. It says this: So Jacob's sons arrived in Egypt along with others to buy food, for the famine was in Canaan as well. Since Joseph was governor of all Egypt and in charge of selling grain to all the people, it was him that his brothers came. When they arrived, they bowed before him with their faces to the ground. Joseph recognized his brothers instantly, but he pretended to be a stranger. Although Joseph recognized his brothers, they didn't recognize him. So Joseph's brothers came to Egypt. Joseph is in charge of all of Egypt and in charge of giving people food. So they came to him because of that, not because he was Joseph. And then Joseph instantly recognized them, but then they didn't recognize him. And so you might be asking, why wouldn't they have recognized Joseph? And there's a few reasons. The first reason is because it was 20 years later, so you can imagine he just like looks older. But then I think one of the bigger reasons is because his appearance would look different because he was now an Egyptian, whereas before, and like his brothers are Jewish. And so Egyptians back then were probably bald. They were probably wearing makeup, wearing like different type of clothing than a Jewish person would wear. Whereas like the Jewish people were probably like mountain men type of looking, like hairier, like grungier. And so the other reason I think that they didn't recognize him was because they thought he was dead. So like they didn't even think that he would be there because they thought he was dead, you know? And so I think this is important because we know that his brothers weren't there to find forgiveness. They came because they were in need of something. So now Joseph is face to face with the very people who brought him immense pain. The people who were supposed to love him and the people who were supposed to protect him were now in need, and he was the only one who could help them. So what is Joseph going to do? How is he going to respond? And I think this goes back to our question. We'll have it back up on the screen again. What are we supposed to do when someone has hurt us so bad that it feels impossible to forgive them? I think these questions go hand in hand. Like, what's Joseph going to do? What am I supposed to do when I'm hurt? And so there were three things that set Joseph apart. And so I think if you guys are wanting to go God's way over the world's way, I would write these three things down, because there are three things that set Joseph apart from the rest of the world, these three things that he did. So the first thing, are you guys ready? First thing is this. Joseph was so full of God's love that he was still able to forgive his brothers who did him wrong. Joseph was so full of God's love, he was still able to forgive his brothers who did him wrong. So in Genesis 42, verse 24, it says, "Now he turned away from them and began to weep." So Joseph had every reason to feel frustration, to feel animosity, to feel anger towards his brothers. And honestly, if I were in his shoes, I probably would feel those things. Wouldn't you guys say that? By the world standards, like, Joseph had every right to be angry and to leave his brothers to starve, but he didn't. He didn't feel angry at them. So we go back to the verse. Can we go back to that verse really fast? It says, "Now he turned away from them and he began to weep." So Joseph was so overcome with emotions because of the love that he had for his brothers. And guys, the only way that you could love someone who tried to kill you is if you have the love of God inside of you. When we have a relationship with God and when we're near to him, he can do things in our hearts that don't make sense. So it doesn't really make sense that Joseph would feel any sort of love towards people who wanted to hurt him, right? Someone who betrayed him. So what would make sense is like anger, bitterness, wanting to seek revenge, but that's not what Joseph felt, because Joseph was a man who loved God and who knew God, and God can give us a heart for the person who did us wrong. He can make us feel empathy for someone who doesn't deserve it. So let's go to Romans 5:8. It says this. It says, "But God shows his love for us in that while we were still sinners, Christ died for us." So while we were still sinners, isn't that powerful, guys? While we were still sinners, we fail him every day, but he still loves us. He still feels love for us, even though we let him down day after day. And so when we're in a relationship with a God who loves us, despite what we've done, we start to become like him. So the more we spend time with God, the more we start to mimic his character. So if you're struggling to forgive somebody today, I would say be close to Jesus. So number two, the second thing that Joseph did, Joseph chose to love them and serve them despite what they did to him. So he chose to love them and serve them despite what they did to him. So Joseph continually served his brothers even before they knew it was him. So if we go to Genesis 42, verse 25, it says, "Joseph then ordered his servants to fill the men's sacks with grain, but he also gave secret instructions to return each brother's payment at the top of his sack. He also gave them supplies for their journey home." So Joseph didn't only give them the food, but he didn't make them pay for the food. He gave them their money back, and he gave them extra supplies. So Joseph is going above and beyond for his brothers that hurt him. He gave them what they asked for, but he gave them even more than that. And then if we go to Genesis 43, verse 34, it says, "And Joseph filled their plates with food from his own table." So now he's inviting them into his own home, and he filled their plates with his food, rather than like the food that the government or whatever food they were getting it from over there. Instead he's giving them his own food from his own home. So he's going above and beyond. And then Genesis 44, verse 1 through 2, it says, "When his brothers were ready to leave, Joseph gave these instructions to his palace manager. Fill each of their sacks with as much grain as they can carry and put each man's money back into his sack." So the same thing. He's going above and beyond for his brothers who did him wrong. He's giving them more than they asked for. And so I would say Joseph didn't really owe his brothers really a single thing. He could have easily treated them the way that they treated him. He could have denied them absolutely anything, and he had the power to do whatever he wanted to do to them. So he went above and beyond, and he served them. He gave them more than they asked for. And so in Matthew 5, verse 43, it says, You have heard the law that says, love your neighbor and hate your enemy. But I say, love your enemies. Pray for those who persecute you. In that way, you will be acting as true children of your Father in heaven. So guys, if we are people who desire to go God's way over the world's way, we wear these sweatshirts every week, right? Who's wearing the sweatshirt right now? I see you. Yes, a few people are wearing these. What does it say on the back? It says, God's way over the world's way. So if we're going to wear these sweatshirts and we're declaring that we're going God's way over the world's way, guys, we are not called to just wear these words on our backs. We're called to live it out in our lives. And the world says, love your neighbor, hate your enemies. But God says, love your enemies, go above and beyond for them. And the world's going to say that you are crazy for doing that. But this is what it looks like to be a follower of Christ. So go above and beyond for others, despite what they have done to you, despite how you maybe even feel. Going God's way over the world's way means doing things that sometimes don't make sense. Can you raise your hand if you want to go God's way over the world's way? Okay, beautiful. Then this is the type of life that we are called to live, a life that doesn't really make sense to the world, and a life that is dedicated to doing the hard thing, but doing the right thing. So the third thing that Joseph does is he understood that even though his brothers meant to harm him, God turned it around and used it for good. So he understood that even though his brothers meant to harm him, God turned it around and he used it for good. So if you remember, Joseph's brothers, they sold him into slavery, and then he eventually became the ruler of Egypt, and God used him to do incredible things in Egypt. And so what his brothers meant for harm, God took and he used it for good. So Genesis 50, verse 20, it says this, you intended to harm me, but God intended it all for good. He brought me to this position so I could save the lives of many people. So Joseph saw that God can take a mess of a situation and he can turn it around for good. He can take your pain and your suffering, and he can turn it into something beautiful. So because Joseph understood that, he was able to forgive his brothers. And so in Romans 8:28, it says, and we know that God causes everything to work together for the good of those who love God and are called according to his purpose for them. And so maybe you are feeling pain tonight. Maybe someone hurt you, and you can't imagine ever feeling love for them ever again. You can't imagine that your relationship would ever be the same with that person. And sometimes I would say it's okay for your relationships to not be the same, and I would say sometimes it's even necessary that you separate yourself from that person. But sometimes, guys, he calls us to continue to love through the pain. So the three things that we're going to do, a little quick recap. We're going to be full of God's love. We're going to spend time with him. We're going to know him. We're going to choose to serve despite what has been done for you. Despite what has been done to you. And we're going to understand that he works all things out for good. Even if that person meant to harm you, God will use it for good. And so as we wrap up tonight, if you've missed every other part of tonight, I just want you guys to hear this, that this is the perfect picture of who Jesus is. We are the brothers that betrayed someone who did nothing wrong. You and me, we fail God every single day, and we don't deserve any type of forgiveness. We deserve to be completely left in the dark. But Jesus is still able to love us. Jesus serves us way more than we deserve, and Jesus knew that there was a greater plan ahead when he was being nailed to the cross. He knew that that was going to save us. And Jesus took on the punishment that we deserved, and we're people who hurt him day in and day out. And so I want you guys to imagine for a second that you're Jesus, and you're completely innocent. You've never hurt anyone in your life. You've never sinned, and the very people that you love and are dying for are the ones that are killing you. They're the ones causing you so much pain. And to me, it seems like the pain of the betrayal would be worse than maybe the actual pain of being nailed to the cross. The people you love and have given your life for choose to deny you, they choose to be against you, and they choose to go the world's way. And I think we choose to go in the opposite direction of Jesus. But tonight, you have the opportunity to choose God's way. You have the opportunity to be in a relationship with a God that loves you so much that he would save you by taking your spot and taking your punishment. So you have the opportunity to say yes to a God that has forgiven you, just like Joseph forgave his brothers. So would you guys bow your heads and close your eyes with me? If you want to say yes to Jesus tonight for the first time, if you want to choose to go God's way over the world's way and live a life that is obedient to Jesus, would you just raise your hand tonight? If you want to surrender your life to Jesus, if you want to live a life that's obedient to Christ, would you just raise your hand? If that's you, pray this between you and God tonight. Pray this between you and God. God, I'm tired of going the world's way. I want to go your way, and I want to live a life that is honoring to you. Jesus, come into my heart and into my life. You guys can put your hands down. For others of you, maybe there's someone in your life that has done you wrong. Maybe you're feeling a weight in your heart because you can't shake this feeling of bitterness and this feeling of anger towards someone that hurt you. If that's you tonight, would you just raise your hand? I just want to pray for you guys tonight. God, thank you, God, just for all those who gave their life to you tonight. God, we thank you for loving us so much that you took our place of death, even though we didn't deserve it. We thank you that you can bring us to a place where it feels possible to forgive the person that hurt us. God, I just pray for the student tonight that's having a hard time forgiving someone in their life. I pray that you would give them empathy. I pray that you would give them the courage to love that person despite what they've done to them. I pray that they would remember that you work all things out for good. What they might have intended for harm, God, you will make good. I pray that you would just work through us this week as we deal with friends and family and people around us. And I pray you would just remind us to live a life that just doesn't make sense to the world. We love you, God, and it's in your name we pray. Amen.
Amen.